In a society of self-interest, there are those who selflessly care. Their days are long and sleepless nights are common, yet they carry on with great dedication and care.
Honoring the plight of these caregivers, the unsung heroes, we invite upon stage Team S6.
In a dimly shadows dance across the bearing faces, each one silently bearing the weight of profound and unrelenting burden. The air is heavy with the sacrifices made by those who have taken the role of caregivers. In this world of whispered hopes and relentlessly, all the people are doing their best for their caregivers. This, where love and devotion are the protagonists, exhaustion and despair are the antagonists. This is a tale of caregivers, a story etched in the deepest crevices of the human heart, where the drama of caregiving unfolds every day. We lead a busy lives. We have careers, families, friends, hobbies, and often set our routine to keep our lives organized. And little do we think about what a primary caregiver needs. We always think about a patient requires the utmost care and attention. Who are primary caregivers?
A primary caregiver is a first degree relative or spouse besides a non-professional unpaid person who is involved in everyday care of the patient. A first degree relative could be parents, children, or siblings. The concept of caregiving is not something new. It has been existing since ages. Kumar, a character from Ramayana, who was an ideal son, looked after his white parents, is a prime example of caregiving. What does a primary caregiver do?
Caregivers play a crucial role in providing support and assistance to individuals who are unable to take care of themselves due to various reasons like age, disability, and illness. They provide assistance with daily activities like taking medication, keeping track of record, observing and reporting changes in physical and mental health to medical professionals. They respond in cases of emergencies. They seek assistance if needed. They offer support
On family, social, leisure activities, and financial costs. Regardless of the medical conditions of the care recipient, the caregiver's burden is equally significant. But in caregivers of psychiatric patients, the emotional strain outweighs the physical strain.
According to NHM estimates, 6 to 7% of India's population suffers from mental disorders. That is, 1 in 4 families is likely to have at least one family member suffering from mental disorders. Most of these cases remain untreated due to ignorance and stigma. Because of this, the caregivers of these patients keep suffering, which will impact on their health. Caregivers of psychiatric
depression, and 6.5% of them showed borderline levels of anxiety and depression.
In terms of depression, 4.9% experience severe depression, 14.5% experience moderate depression, 17.7% experience borderline depression. In relation to stress, 21% of them had worsened stress and 69.4% had moderate stress.
The coping style which was used most frequently was problem-focused coping, which accounted for 45.2% of the responses. This term refers to all the active efforts to manage stressful situations. The least utilized coping style was avoidant coping, which accounted for 28% of the responses. This term refers to all the activities like disengaging from behavioral activities, engaging in self-distraction, resorting to substance abuse. There is an association between socio-economic status of the primary caregivers with their burden.
During our study, we encountered Saujanya, a 32-year-old woman, a dedicated mother, and a primary caregiver of a 10-year-old child diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 5. From the very young age, the child had difficulty controlling his emotions. Whenever he gets frustrated, overwhelmed, or mildly upset, he would burst into tears that seemed never-ending. These excessive crying episodes were distressing to the mother, and during one such episode, she gave her a blow with a cane. After that incident, she was so guilty that she punished herself by burning her arm with a heated iron rod so that the scar would always remind her that her child himself is not responsible for the way he is.
Hence, supporting caregivers is crucial to decrease their burden and ensure the well-being of both caregivers and care recipients. There are many ways to do so, like respite care, which is a temporary form of care to the individual they are providing care for, which allows them to rest and recharge. Establishing caregiver support groups so that they communicate with people facing similar challenges. Encouraging employers to provide flexible work hours so they can accommodate their caregiving needs. Offering counseling to caregivers so they can cope with the emotional stress of caregiving.
Promote the use of technology such as telemedicine or mobile apps that would make caregiving tasks more manageable. Raise awareness of the importance of caregivers and recognize their efforts. Advocate for government policies that support caregivers. Identify the strengths, skills, interests of different members of the family and assign the tasks that align with their abilities and preferences. Health. Mental health is one of the important positions of every individual. It has to be cherished, promoted, and conserved to the maximum. Millions of silent heroes work tirelessly for their loved ones, whether elderly, ill, or disabled. Yet millions of them are suffering as a result. We believe it's time for a change. It's time for the world to recognize benefits from the caregivers so that the unpaid caregivers can provide best care for their loved ones, ultimately providing best care for everyone. Because there is no love like it. Let's stand beside them. Let them have ease their burden. Help them understand. Let's initiate us. Let's find a way to bring light in the darkness of night. All I need is love, peace, and support. All I need is them. Thank you.
So, great job and a superb topic which is often neglected is the need of the hour. So, my question to you is, did you ask the caregiver, did anybody ask this question from them before your team did? I mean, were they asked this question before? Do we have provision in our hospitals for talking to the caregivers? What percentage underwent counseling themselves?
No, ma'am, there are not such things happening, but we are suggesting to provide a home to caregivers also, so they can talk to the counselors and get help with their stress and burden. So we are encouraging it.
So as of now, none of them have been treated or none of them has received counseling before.
Not that we know of now.
Okay. And was there a difference between the economic status of the family and the caregiver burden which you could find out in your study?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. Caregivers with lower socioeconomic status, they had significantly more burden when compared to the caregivers of other socioeconomic status. The financial, obviously, the problem arises with the financial burden. Caregivers, they cannot, they have, caregiving comes with medical expenses and transportation, etc. charges. So that might again lead to financial burden and higher socioeconomic status. People from higher socioeconomic status, they also plan for long, like insurance plans, long-term care insurance plans. So that can also alleviate the caregiver's burden.
Okay. You said predominantly the caregivers were women. Did women cope better as well as compared to men as caregivers?
Sorry,
Did women cope better with the stress of caregiver burden versus men?
In our study, women were more involved in caregiving when compared to men. When compared to men, males have more caregiver burden when compared to women in our study. According to our study, there might be, it might not be a complete.
What do you think is the reason for that?
Probably in India, caregiving is mostly gender. I mean, people believe that women are more nurturing and caregiving when compared to men, and maternal instinct, and all of them they play a role.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Why you are all looking very dull? You have presented a very nice topic. You have put forth a very relevant topic actually. Me being a psychiatrist, I appreciate your presentation from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So, all of you please smile once. Please smile. Answer with this smile. Only one question I have for you. You might have studied a lot of patients. Some of them might be having shorter duration of illness, some of them might be having longer duration of illness, some of them might be having schizophrenia, some of them might be having bipolar or depression or something. Was this taken into the account, duration of illness or diagnosis?
Inclusion criteria for our study is caregivers who are involved in caregiving duration for more than 6 months, ma'am.
Yeah, that is minimum. Maximum.
There is no maximum limit, ma'am.
Yeah.
In our study.
That becomes a drawback in your study, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Because some of the illnesses are debilitating, like schizophrenia, it causes more visibility. So then, in that case, caregiver burden will be more. Some conditions, they are episodic illnesses, they have good progresses, their caregiver burden may be less. Duration of illness, diagnosis was not considered. Okay, no problem. It is not your objective. I would like to know if there is any correlation between caregiver burden and coping skills, coping mechanisms. You told 74% utilized problem solving coping strategy. That's why I asked this question.
Thank you for the question, ma'am. Actually, according to our study, the coping mechanism which was most used was problem-focused coping, which was 45.2%. And the ways in which they did that, they involved in all the active efforts to manage stressful situations. And sorry, ma'am, we'll look into it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Guys, just come friend little bit. Come friend.
Nicely presented and a relevant topic. One thing I would like to ask you about the sample size calculation. So you have used 4% as the prevalence.
What did you take into account for this? Sample size, formula, you have used some formula, right?
Thank you for the question, sir. We use Daniel sample size formula. Sorry, sir, could you please repeat the question
You
once
have
again?
used 0.04 as the prevalence value. What prevalence have you taken? Mask.
Prevalence value. It's according to our hospital records, sir. The prevalence value.
Prevalence of what? Prevalence of what?
Prevalence of the caregivers burden.
Prevalence of.
I want to congratulate you first of all. Excellent presentation. Topic so difficult, and you chose to go to a mental health clinic and decided to spend time with such patients and families. That will mean a lot of us for coming from such a young students. I really appreciate that. So when we walk into those very difficult families and those so much suffering, what was your own mental state when you were going home? What were you thinking? What was your reflection after going home with this day?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. During our study, we came across many people who are taking care of their loved ones without even expecting anything from them. In some cases, obviously, psychiatric patients, caregivers of psychiatric patients, they face unique challenges. It might be facing the unpredictable behaviors, managing the episodes and all. And these caregivers, the only concern which they had was to how can they improve. They always had this constant thought that how can their child or how can their other person get better in their life.
Was it disturbing to witness all that suffering?
Yes, I'm sure it was very emotional for us too. Thank you, ma'am.
Let's look here.